At what volume level did you create your team? How large is your team and how do you structure it? So that's a really good question. So I got to handling about 30 listings before I felt like my customer service was starting to really take a hit. And once I got to that 30 listings, I realized that I either needed to be comfortable staying at the 30 listings or below, because that I knew I was going to be able to really maintain my level of service and quality for everyone, or I was going to need to branch out. And I never remember the name of that gentleman that came that day that did a star session for us, but he kept saying, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I will tell you, I've done more of that in the last 5 or 6 years than I have done, probably my whole adult life. So once I got to that point, I realized that I needed an assistant. I first went the virtual agent route. And I got just connected with an amazing virtual agent or virtual assistant. And she helped me for a good 6 months until I realized I had to have somebody that was going to be in person. And so I did a lot of leaning on Scott during that time, and really got the support in learning how to delegate and learning how to let go of some of those things. And I think for some of you agents who have been in this for a long time and are really successful, that's one of the hardest things to do, is to learn to delegate and learn to let go of some of those things. But if you don't, and if you don't start realizing that the most important thing that you can do for your clients is be in front of them, work with them, negotiate for them, do the contracts for them. You don't necessarily have to do all the administrative things behind the scenes that somebody else can do. You have to be with them. And to do that, you need to have some help. So right now, I have 2 assistants, Joy and Bryn, who I could not and will not live without. They're kind of stuck with me. And then we have 5 buyer's agents now. So I am just so proud of my team, and we have a really unique group because, especially when you have all women working together, we all get along so good, and we have a common goal, and we are so supportive of each other. And I think that shows in our business, and how much we care about what we do, we also care about each other. So I would say when you are looking to form that team, you have to have that philosophy of what you're going to put in front of your clients. Who do you want your clients to think that you are as a realtor? What are you going to provide them? But who are you also as a person? Because at the end of the day, there's a lot of people out there who think that we all do about the same amount of work. They don't always know until you can really learn to explain to them what you're doing for them and what they're getting with hiring you. So I think having that team and being able to really define who you are as a business person and what you will be providing. Everything reflects on you. And I think that I have the most amazing team. And we've grown slowly, and I would tell you that. If you're starting, and everybody has to do it their own way, but for me it was very methodical, and I've probably done it too slow at times, where I get to a point where, and Joy and Brent can probably say, we're all just going nuts. There's no more time at all in the day. There's literally nothing else that we could do. We could all stay there all day, almost every day. So when that happens, it is time for processes. It is time to really look at how we're doing it as a business, and it is also time to potentially hire more people. And so that is what we've done. So I would just say make sure that you have a plan, and then you really go into it and methodically execute it. Do you do the majority of your listing appointments, buyers, home inspections, paperwork? I go to all my listing appointments. Like I just said, I do some of the buyers' appointments. Otherwise, my buyer's agents do them. If I'm representing the buyer, I'm at every home inspection. We don't ever not attend our inspections. I think it's a really important time to also bond. But the other day, I had just a crazy schedule, and my client picked a home inspector that I don't typically pick, and they take hours and hours and hours and hours. So I told her right up front that I lovely Bryn was going to come help with the inspection, but she knows Bryn. She's been working with the team, so she felt represented. Paperwork. Paperwork would be me and Joy for the most part. On the listing side, Bryn. So Bryn helps me with all of my listings. Once they go under contract, Joy then helps me with all the transactions. So everything is extremely organized. So that's how we handle paperwork. Okay, how do you manage client expectations so you can have a life? That's a great question. And you guys are asking such good questions. We're gonna go over a lot of this. I set major expectations for my clients. And I also ask my clients what their expectations are of me. And that has taught me a lot. So if I'm in on a listing appointment, I let them know that I leave a daily message on my phone. That may not be for all of you guys because I actually did one of these star sessions a couple years ago, and one of the agents started doing it. She actually called me in Fredericksburg for something, and I called her back, and her voice message was 4 days old. And I was like, okay, just so you know, you need to update your message. Like, you know, don't do that unless you're going to do it every single day. But to me, that's how I help manage my clients' expectations. They call and they know what my schedule is every single day on my phone. And if it's the weekend and I'm not holding office hours, which is pretty much almost every weekend, I say I'm out of the office today. You know, if you have, if you're calling me about any of the properties that I have on the market or about buying or selling a home, please send me a text or send me an email, and I leave my email address. And then I usually say, and if it is something that you need to reach me on today, please send me a text. That's the quickest way to reach me. So I tell my clients, Monday through Friday, they can reach us pretty much anytime. I do have a customer service number, which is separate from my phone, because I am busy, and I don't want people to feel like they can't reach me or they can't get to me as quick as they need to. So if they call my phone, I tell them, leave a message. I'll call you back as soon as I can. Text is always the fastest way to reach me. However, if it is something administrative or something really important, please call my customer service line. Joy or Bryn are going to always answer. And we've really been able to provide such service, and we have so much communication during the week that there's really not much for them to call me on the weekend. They've been touched enough to be able to kind of step back and let us have a weekend, because when you are working and we're working as hard as we are during the week, you need to have some time. You cannot sustain that all the time, and I think that's one of the hardest parts about real estate. Set those expectations, and we do work really hard during the week. And I've gotten to the point now where sometimes if it's not urgent on the weekend, I don't always respond back, and I know that that's like the worst thing ever, but it really isn't, because people are now starting to understand, okay, if I need to, and if it's important, they know I'm going to get right back to them. But if it's something that's just like, oh hey, I was just thinking about this, or what do you think about that? And we've already talked about it, or whatever. A lot of times I'll shoot a quick message back and say, hey, I'll be back to touch with you guys about that on Monday. Or sometimes if it's at 10 o'clock at night, which we still get a lot, I used to always text right back. And right now, sometimes I don't sleep through the night when I don't, but I've tried to get better about saying it's okay to wait until the next morning for certain things if it's not an emergency. And I've had people really start to respect that space a little bit more. So when we're at the listing appointment, I also ask them, what are your expectations of me? And you guys would be really surprised if you ask that question, what people say to you. Quite often it's not at all what you think that they would say. And a lot of times it's communication, because they've had a bad experience in the past, or they just really want to know what's going on. And I set up my communication plan with them. I met with sellers yesterday, and the wife looked at me and she's like, look, I am the worst texter in the world. She goes, text me just updates. She goes, but call me if you need anything. Then I have a lot of clients who are like, please don't call me. I can't keep my phone with me at work, email me or whatever. But you don't know that unless you ask them. So everybody has a different way of going about it. What do you emphasize most during your listing presentation? I don't think that I have one thing that I emphasize on most. I do it in sections. So the first section is going to be walking around the home. I've done a detailed analysis. I know in my head when I walk in, if this house is in mint condition, it's going to be this price. If it's in decent condition, it's going to be this price. If it's in poor condition, or I pull up and there's just all sorts of mess going on around outside of it, pretty much what it's going to be in. So I've got that before I go in. I always ask to do a tour first, every single time. And there's a lot of people who will say, oh, come sit down, and they want to go sit down at the table. And I always say, oh, thank you so much. Do you mind if we do a tour first? I would really like to see the house, and then I can talk to you better about it. But as we're walking around the house, I'm learning more about them. And I'm asking them the questions that I want to know. Where are you guys moving? There's so many different qualifying questions depending upon who they are. Are they somebody online? We get obviously a lot of blind leads now. That are not referred from somebody. So you kind of want to know, how did you get my information? When are you going to be moving? What are your expectations? Are there things that you're doing to the house? Because sometimes people do stuff they never need to do, and you guys know that. There's other times where you need to make some suggestions. So I do it into different sections. So we do the home tour first, then we sit down. I used to always do price first, because everybody wants to know how much to sell their home for, and I did that for years. I do not do that anymore. I sell the expertise of my experience and my team. And I do that next because I've learned over the last 3 years, especially when prices have been all over the place, that if I don't set up the expertise and the knowledge, that they're going to question price more than if you've done that first. So if you really set that expectation up of, listen, we do sell a lot of homes, and here's our listing to sales price ratio, and here's our listings taken versus listings sold ratio, here's my average days on market. When you start knowing your percentages, and we're going to go over that, all of a sudden these people are sitting there going, they really do know what they're talking about. So if I give a price that maybe they don't love, it's a different conversation than it would be otherwise. And there's still plenty of people who are like, well, I really need to sell for this. Okay, well then let's talk realistically if we can do that, or if we're going to try and make a potential price reduction, but we have to kind of get on board with all of that. And then we go through marketing. And I'll go through marketing a little bit with you guys, but I've learned, especially over the last year or two, they're like, oh yeah. Because at the very end when I go over it, I'll say, has anybody else offered you anything that I haven't mentioned or that I haven't offered? And almost every single time they'll go, no. But every now and again they'll go, no, but it was pretty similar. I'm like, okay, what did you feel was similar? And then they'll say, and I'm like, yeah. Go back over that. But I don't know that those are the things that are most important to them, or maybe they're not getting that I know make a huge difference in hiring us versus hiring somebody else. So again, it's asking the qualifying questions and making sure that you're really establishing that rapport with them. How long is your average listing appointment? It's an hour now. If I can keep it to an hour, I do. But I am a really big talker, so I was at one for almost 2 hours yesterday. But there's going to be multiple properties that we're working on, so we had a lot to talk about. But normally an hour, and that's sufficient, Sometimes it goes a little bit over, but I think if you really have the stats and you have your presentation down, you should be able to do it in about that time. When you had a client, how often do you contact them? What do you do versus what buyer agent does? Do you attend the settlement? Same person? Oh, I always attend settlements. I always do. Always. I think that is really, really important. If it's a buyer and they're working with one of my buyer's agents attends. And if I'm there, then I definitely stop in or, come in and hug everybody. And sometimes it's back to back, so we're both there together doing settlements. I'm a big believer in making sure that you attend that settlement and inspections. We always attend all of our inspections, unless it's like septic, we don't always. How many of you guys, one of the biggest things that you struggle with is fear of disappointing people? Some of y'all are really good, because that's my worst, is fear of disappointing people. And so to have a client that wants to also buy a home and to hand them off to somebody else, to me, was like that's basically saying to them that I don't care and I don't have time for you. And, I had to really learn how to overcome that to build my business, because I was losing opportunities. I was losing buyers. And at the end of the day, losing buyers for your seller's home is not doing your sellers the best justice. And I learned, how to be able to do that. It's trial and error. I mean, that's really a lot of what it comes down to. But I found people, and I found in my first full-time buyer's agent is still with me. It's Karen Jansen. And I mean, she's amazing, and she's really helped build that side of the business. And I have so many of my clients who call me back and they're like, oh my God, Amy, Karen is so amazing. And they say the same thing about my other buyer's agents. And that's because I know that they're giving that level of service. We all have that same goal and we all know how to do it. So to them, it's like, okay, well, if I'm buying a home, then, and I still do, go out with some of my buyers, and I still do, help with the contracts and things like that, because my long-term clients, they do want me, and I get that, and I still want to work with them. It's just a time factor. So we've been able to work out a way that works for everybody. And one more thing too about teams that I want to say, because I think over the years, and I always said somewhat of a negative connotation of teams because of what I had always heard about them. And I want to make sure that you guys understand that if you are doing a team, or if, and I bring this up to my clients all the time when I go to listing appointments, I have created a team so that they have me. Most of the time, the way that a lot of the old school teams kind of did it is they would get out and get the business, and then the clients never heard from the agent again. They dealt with everybody on their team, which is great, and that's fine. But that's not why the majority of consumers are hiring you. They're hiring you for your expertise and your negotiations and your customer service. And so I always let all of my clients know that I have an amazing team who is just going to up that customer service level, and so that they're handling all the little details behind the scenes that will make that a perfect transaction, but to put me in front of them so that I am always handling the most important parts that they need me for. And I will tell you, when you say that to people almost all the time, they're like, oh yeah, oh I've heard that, oh yeah, I have this experience. I mean, it really is truly out there. So I would just say, if you are a team, make sure you really explain to people why you are a team and how your team functions, and why that's a benefit to them. Especially with the instant gratification of this day and age. I would encourage those of you who are teetering on that verge of trying to figure out whether you're going to get an assistant or continue to increase your business. Buyers and sellers expect you to get back to them right away. I mean, and we as buyers or sellers, it's funny because I'll call, we've been doing a lot of landscaping and all this, that, and the other, and I'm not getting calls right back, and so I'm like, oh, they're probably really busy. I'll just call back tomorrow. I know how that is. Even though I'm always calling people back, even like last night, I made my last call at 8 o'clock last night, but it got done that same day. So I'll kind of give them a little bit of grace, and that next day I'll call again, and I wasn't getting a call back, and I was like, really? Because I think this day and age, we are expecting to get that. You know that they are getting your communication. You know that they're getting your message. So I would just say, make sure you're really explaining what that team does and why you created it and how it functions. Because it is a positive, it's not a negative.
And you've spoken a lot about how you communicate now. But one of the challenges we have is how we share information across the team so that we're not inundating each other, but we're still able to, if somebody needs to step in on something relative to a client and so on, because I think you're structured slightly different in that everybody's got a defined role. We tend to be more lateral, that although we have a lead on a client, there's always somebody behind them, so to speak. How do you manage that communication?
I think that's a good question. So it depends on what part of the process they're in. So like if they're on the listing side, then they're going to be between Bryn and I. And they meet Bryn at the photo shoot. So I do the listing and I always do my introduction of Bryn and she goes to the photo shoot. That way they have a face-to-face introduction now. So that when she's sending feedback and she and I are both communicating with them, that they know who Bryn is. And that's why when they come in for closing and give Joy a hug, she's always like, what about Bryn? Because by that point it's been 9 days out or whatever. We always joke about that. But it's really, really helpful because then if Bryn's filling in for me or if I'm at night or on the weekends, I mean, she's been amazing at helping me with our listing phone some nights, and Gina typically does a lot of our listing phones on the weekend, and it's amazing because it gives me a little bit of break, but our clients don't feel the break. So for people stepping in on the listing side, it's typically going to be Bryn, and once they're under contract, it's typically going to be Joy. If it's a client that is still actively looking for houses, or a client both on the buying side, then usually our buyer's agents, you guys do a lot of talking to each other and they fill in for each other all the time. So I think we all are introducing ourselves as a team when we do our initial presentation, whether it's on the listing side or whether it's on the buying side. And we explain to them that somebody will always be available, that we are their agent. But if I am on vacation, then somebody's going to be filling in and that's who they will be talking to. And it's really cool because for instance, I have a client who I just sold their house, and then I just sold the fiance's house, and then they were buying another house. Well, we sold the one, we're kind of selling the but we sold this one. But anyways, so Gina was helping me a lot. And I mean, the whole time, anytime she would call, she's like, tell Gina I said hi, and I was over there when we were doing our final walkthrough, and we were doing, she was like, oh my God, we're gonna have our housewarming party. You two are the first guests that we're having. They think of us together. They think of us as their people. It's not just one, they're getting all of us when they hire us. And I think we've been successful at selling that, but it's setting those expectations. Mm-hmm.
What emails are you copying on from your team?
Everything. Everything.
Any email on the buy side and the list side?
If they're a buyer's agent, they're not copying me when they're communicating, but they're quite often copying Joy if they're under contract. So the way that we do it, so if Bryn's sending out, she helps me a lot with feedback. So Bryn and I, I'm sending it, she's sending it, so we always CC each other, so we can see if this one's been sent, because I try to get it out to people as quickly as possible. So if I'm on an appointment, she sends it, or she'll send me a message and go, should I send this, or what do you think about this? And then if I'm sending something, I send it to her. Anything that we have if sellers message me about a problem in the home or something that they're going to be doing, if they have not messaged Bryn to and I reply back, I usually CC her. Just so that on the listing side that she's filled in for everything. Once they're under contract, Joy CCs us. And I mean, we do it on as many as we possibly can. Every now and again, there's an email that doesn't get CC'd, but that's, just a little communication back and forth. But any major things that are going on, we CC each other. we define it to our clients. So like we have videos, Brent has a video, Joy has a video, that gets sent out to the clients that is introducing them. So it's also saying to them, because I've been to the listing presentation, I've explained what we're doing. I've talked about Brynn and how she's going to be coming to the photo shoot and how she helps stage and this, that, and the other. And then they get her video. So it's a reiteration of what I'm here for. And I am here to, you can feel free to call me too, if you have questions, blah, 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 blah. Same thing for once they go under contract. That's when Joy's video is saying, hi, I'm Joy. You're also going to be hearing from me now as well as Amy. And this is what I'm going to be doing for you and how I'm going to communicate with you each week. So we do a lot also with these videos that we've done so that people are not confused. And so people understand who they're talking to next. And it worked really good because, they'll call, they can put a face with a voice, and they also know to pay attention to Joy's emails now. Like they're getting something and they're like, oh, I need to pay attention to this and not just let it go in miscommunication. They also know they have a backup so that if they call me and I can't answer or whatever, a lot of times they'll call Joy or they'll call Joy and say, hey, telling me this. It's so much smoother than you would think that it would be, but it's because that introduction has been made for each party. Yeah.
On those videos, are you emailing the video clip or are you emailing a link to YouTube?
So we use BombBomb. Yes. So and that's going to have your video embedded in the email.
So those come from Amy, not from me.
And we've tried that because initially we had them coming and they weren't getting watched, and we were like, but they didn't know to expect Joy yet. So even though they saw her at AveryHess.com, I don't think they were really always seeing it. So what we did is we started sending emails from me that introduced, that said you need to open this up, this is going to be the next step of the process, and it's a video from Joy. But you guys check out BombBomb. You can use it for your clients. There's a lot of great things that you can do that you can see when we do this a lot. We're like, did they watch the video yet? We're like, we can tell they haven't seen it yet. Maybe we need to resend it or whatever. Because you can see when they open it, you can see, and there's a lot of people who go back and watch it a few times. And so it's obviously helpful. It's providing content for them, and it's backing up our communication. So it's just a continuation. And that was only to fill in gaps. I only started doing that because I was like, they're not getting it. Like I'm not communicating something the right way to explain the transition. Or they're forgetting, so feedback, I'm sorry, but that's a nemesis of mine. I don't know how many of y'all feedback is a nemesis for. And I will say, we as realtors all need to do feedback to help each other out. I can be out all day long and you're getting feedback, typically back that same day, because I know what my sellers are going through. So I'm really good about giving feedback. I think the more that we can all do that, the more it helps all of us to look professional.
Amy, do you always go to your listing presentations alone? Did you consider maybe taking Joy with you?
I typically go alone, yeah. Every now and again, we'll go together, or if it's going to be somebody that I'm going to need to have, I think as my business evolves, that's going to potentially be the next step. Because I'm not going to be able to continue servicing everything as much as I do now if I continue to grow the listing, and that's kind of, something that I've been considering, and how would that look, and how would that work, and how would that function. But right now, I pretty much go on all my listings by myself. I was going to say, exactly, and Bridge probably she bothers me enough at night, I'm not going on listings too. But I'll also go on listing appointments with them, like if they have something that comes up, and I went on one with Brynn last year, and so, I'll do that too.